call this Washington County Board of Education meeting to order. After a brief moment of silence, I'm going to ask Ms. Christina Ann to lead us in the pledge. Would that be okay?
Yes.
We'll go at your time.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Boyd, you got recognition handle.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna change spots. We have some special guests with us, very special guests that were able to join us, and then we also have a longer list of those that could not. We want to make sure we recognize them as well, even though they weren't able to be with us. So tonight we were able to recognize our retirees from 2019, 2020, and 2020 and 2021. We know it's been interesting times, but you know, I just want to say it's always an honor to do this and recognize a group like this. You know, your work, your many years of service, I think it was over a millennium of experience, and the whole group that you've retired in that group, I think it's 1,300 total years of experience, of 1,311 combined years of experience by the two groups of retirees that we are recognizing. And those that, you know, came tonight spent many years as, you know, as part of that 1,300. So that's certainly something. As Washington County schools coming in new to the community and the school system, I mean, that's certainly a testament to the foundation that you were a part of building and maintaining, and all the lives that you touched, and whatever your role was, in a classroom, in the hallways, in a school, and across the district. You know, we certainly want to thank you for your service, and it's a small token of our appreciation tonight, but it's certainly something we want to do, and very proud of the opportunity to have this, to do that. So I will call your name. Jennifer has done a great job of organizing this event this morning. We certainly want to thank her for all her hard work. She also organized the reception downstairs. We're sorry that the dinner did not materialize like it maybe had in the past, but thought a good option would be something like a small reception like we had. I hope it was. Hope you got what you wanted from that, and it's certainly a very small token. All of this is, we cannot repay you for your service to our children, our community, except to just say thank you in a most sincere way. So, in order, we're going to start with the stars. I've met many of you. I'm glad I had that opportunity earlier during the discussion. We'll start out with Mr. Tom Maines, 27 years. Jennifer is also our paparazzi. She'll take some pictures of this and Kathy in this moment. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate your service. And you said it was a total of actually over 40 years of service in Washington County as a total. Right? Am I correct?
No.
Okay.
No, just 27.
Okay, I thought you mentioned something about.
No.
Okay, somebody else.
I probably said I just started teaching when I was 40. So
Oh, just
I've not been watching it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Chemistry and Bible, I do remember that. Next is it Frida Royals? Yes, ma'am. It's Frida Royals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. With us tonight also is Rachel Young, Westview Structural. Thank you very much. Sheila Nave, Jonesboro Elementary School, 26 years as a teacher. She didn't make it. Didn't recognize that name with the group of people at the reception. Guess that's what that big, is next to her name. Yeah. Let's read. Mr. Jerry Davis, Boone's Creek.
Buddy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Rick Freeman at David Crockett High School. That's all right. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Ms. Sheila Lowe, Gray Elementary.
She doesn't trust
both
you.
angles here. Didn't even realize I was wearing it. Betty Jo Dempsey, Jonesboro Elementary School, 42 years as a teacher.
Started.
Anytime. You know where we're at. Yeah, any of you, let's give an opportunity for a plug. If you really feel that desire, you want to get back in the classroom, we certainly can help you. Or you want to get back in school, we certainly can help you. Whether substituting or who knows, maybe even an interim position. So, you know the phone number, it's on Google or it's in the book, give us a call.
Jared's back there to stop them, give them applications before they go out.
We already filled out the application for you, so, Mr. Keith Jeffers, Daniel Boone High School, 40 years. Watching the college conversation, my fault. Thank you, sir. Ms. Sharon Carson, Sulphur Springs, 37 and a half years as a I think that's everyone that was here tonight. So I didn't miss anyone. If you'll indulge me, before we dismiss the class, as we move into the board meeting, I think it's important, even though they're not here, to read the others that weren't able to be here with us. It's a long list, but I can get through it quickly. Hopefully I'll not mispronounce anybody's name. So beginning at the top, David Gilly, Transportation, 8 years as bus driver. Craig Tipton, Maintenance, 32 years in maintenance. Rhonda Cooper, Westview, 30 years as a teacher. Scott Martin, Daniel Boone High, 25 years as a teacher. Karen Watts, South Central, 22 years as a teacher. Kathleen Bagley, Daniel Boone High, 28 years as a teacher. Michael Gardner, Daniel Boone High, 22 years as an ROTC instructor. Becky Thompson, David Crockett, 25 years as an instructional assistant. Rob Hauser, Daniel Boone High, 13 years as a teacher. Vanessa Honeycutt, Sulphur Springs, 30 years as a teacher. Mike Mason, Boone's Creek, 25 years as a teacher. Sarah Murr, Lamar, 27 years as a teacher. Ginger McGamus, South Central, 39 years as a teacher. Amy Knight, Jonesboro Elementary School, 25 years as a teacher. Sarah Swift, Sulphur Springs, 30 years as a teacher. John Roberts, David Crockett High School, 14 years ROTC instructor. Johnny Boswell, David Crockett, 35 years as bookkeeper. Guy McCamus, David Crockett, 15 years as a teacher. Tommy Little, maintenance, 11 years in their maintenance. Gina Fritz, Boone's Creek, 26 years as a teacher. Gene Moore, South Central, 14 years, instructional assistant. Rob Hoover, Daniel Boone High, 16 years, teacher. Steve Miller, maintenance, 15 years in our maintenance department. William Osborne, transportation, 15 years as a bus driver. Gene Littleton, transportation, 44.5 years as a bus driver. Carol Chapman, transportation, 25 years as a bus driver. Rhonda Depew, Ball Branch, 21 years as an instructional assistant. Patricia Lane, system-wide, 19 years as a nurse. Tim Brockwell, Westview, 30 years as a teacher. Scott Fox, David Crockett High School, 39 years as a teacher. Beth French, Westview, 30 years as a teacher. Lisa Lusk, David Crockett, 38 years as a teacher. Carol May, system-wide, 17 years. Randy Winstead, Gray Elementary, 25 years as a teacher. Warren Goff, Gray Elementary, 12 years as a teacher. Craig Hayes, Lamar Elementary, 18 years as a teacher. Ruby Ann Ingram, Lamar, 26 years instructional assistant. James Lamb, maintenance, 23 years in maintenance department. Kathy Vine, Boones Creek, 17 years instructional assistant. Rita McKee, Westview, 19 years as secretary. Jim Murphy, Midway, 55 years in our school system. Serving Washington. Pretty amazing. Carol Clausen, South Central, 4 years instructional assistant. And Karen Wheeler, Midway, 8 years as a teacher. So if you would. You all are welcome to stay for the board meeting, but if not, we'll give you a few minutes to exit this old classroom.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all for being here and giving us the opportunity to
Thank you for helping, Marcus.
Thank you all. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, there's
Yes.
That's what that resolution is.
Okay.
yeah,
It's on the agenda.
it's one of the agenda items of the.
Oh, okay. It's already on there?
Yes, sir.
You all just have to sign it. Somewhere in your discussion.
It's one of the discussion items.
C. Mitchell.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Boyd, we need consideration of the meeting agenda, and before we do that, we want to add 2 things.
Well, you said it was already on.
Oh, we got 2 more.
Okay.
COVID protocol,
As a discussion item.
As a discussion.
If you would, please, yes, sir.
and also add a P, well, is this under a different category? Add PO for.
That's under consent agenda, just add that purchase order that was not included in the list of purchase orders.
Okay, so there's an added purchase order for math materials, special education.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All right,
Voting's open. Sorry, I'm asking Mr. Discretion.
I'm not here.
I'm not either.
Are we not supposed to have it yet?
We got it.
Yeah.
I haven't got it either.
How do you vote, Mr. Day?
I vote yes.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
All right, all approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, now we need approval of meeting minutes.
Second.
You're out. Mr. Hammond and Mr. Riddle second.
Oh, thank you.
stuttering over here, I'm sorry.
Voting's open.
Never heard auctioneer stutter like that.
Well, I got emotional a minute ago.
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah.
Is it working?
No.
Mr.
No.
Reynolds?
Mine says I'm on October the 26th meeting.
Yeah, you need to back out of it. And go to home, and hit home page, and then click on that November 4th. That's what I figured. We got it. We'll have to do better.
Oh, Lily, that's
I
true.
thought it'd be ready.
Sorry, Chairman.
She can't do it all.
Evident. I'm sorry. Okay,
Mr. Irvin,
Hey,
how do you vote?
for the minutes.
yes,
Okay, all approve.
I've got it now.
Okay.
Next item.
Yes, sir.
Announcements, just for a reminder and just for public record and the announcements of some dates. The Tennessee School Board Association Annual Convention in Nashville, November 18th through 21. The last two school visits are next Monday. We'll begin the day at Lamar Elementary and end that morning at South Central. Those have gone really well. The schools have done a great job. A lot of good feedback from the schools, and then talking to each of you, a lot of great feedback. And we've also had the honor of some county commissioners joining us in the walkthrough. So it's been a very, very good experience. I know for me, I've really enjoyed those visits. New Jonesboro Elementary School groundbreaking ceremony, November 9th at 4 p.m. at the site. County Commission meeting, their monthly meeting is scheduled for the 22nd at 6 p.m. Board workshop for December is the 23rd, right the week of Thanksgiving, and then of course Thanksgiving break begins the 24th through 26th for the school system.
I'm sorry, Mr. Boyd, I wanted to go back to the, when talking about the Jonesboro Elementary groundbreaking. Has that been publicized to the both schools with the,
I can't answer that,
Well,
Mr. Browning, and that's
yeah.
the Jonesboro team are
Well,
coordinating all that. Yes, ma'am.
okay, I just wondered if something, like an announcement had been made at both schools to let them, make them aware of it. but-
I do know from communications today from Mr. Browning that the Jonesboro students will be there with shovels.
Okay, well then they know then.
So that may answer that question,
All right,
but I want to make sure I confirm that.
Good, thank you.
And so the next is the superintendent's report. And we have the honor of one of our student board members here with us tonight. It's the first meeting we have one of our student board members, Ms. Christina Yan, and she's here to provide an overview. And she's very excited and not nervous at all. She's going to do a great job. And just remember, you know more than all of us as you walk through this presentation. It's your presentation.
Okay.
And I guess Christina will want me to make sure I emphasize, she is our board representative from Daniel Boone High School.
Yes.
Bless his heart.
It's all yours, Christina.
I have to stand up.
You don't have to stand
Okay.
up, no ma'am.
I thought you're in
Okay.
front of the Congress, so, it's a big deal. You're very important.
Okay, so
Go ahead and rub it in.
Boone won the basketball. So now we know which school is better. And we gained top spot in the 1-5A region. And then our ROTC team also finished first in the local 5K. And Daniel Boone and Crockett repeat as Region 1 cross country champs. And Gray, there was a bunch of schools that were ranked on the ranking, but the highest ones were Gray and Ridgeview. Gray was ranked number 50 and Ridgeview was ranked number 57. And Boone had our first trunk or treat this year. I'm in that picture, and
Are you the one with the witch hat on?
yes, I know my costume wasn't that good. This was like everybody's trunk, and this was the basketball team's trunk.
You know how many children were served, had a chance to go through?
I don't know, but there were a lot. We all ran out of candy.
Well, that's good.
Wow.
That's a great thing.
It is a great thing, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it.
Is that was it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you, ma'am. Wasn't that bad?
Very good.
You got through.
You hurt me. You hurt me bad.
What you do?
First
I'm sorry, we're just better.
Let's fly it again.
Really?
Mitchell.
We're just bad.
Well, you know, I guess that goes along with victory, but it's sometimes it's short-lived. I mean, you know,
It's
it
not our
lasts
fault
as
you
long as it does.
We had to have our off days.
Yeah.
Everything has
So the
off.
other items are just for public record and board's information from enrollment updates, field trip reports, our maintenance information. I did share with you all the progress on the south central floor, just some photos that the floor should be ready for use on Monday. The work really looks outstanding. It's great, looks really good. Mr. Hale's financials that we reviewed in the work session. And then personnel reports, the monthly personnel reports there for your review. And then other, let's see, Jennifer, I'm gonna recall what those are just for your information.
That was the South Central.
Yeah, that was just kind of to make sure we got some more photos. So on the screen, you can see the photos of the floor, of the work that is being completed. Looks really good.
And that PO.
Yeah, and then the purchase order you added to go into the consent agenda is also in other. It's just a purchase of math curriculum materials specific for special education. Other than that, that's all of the items in the superintendent's report, and we move into your consideration of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Can I discuss for a second?
Yes, sir.
So on that, I'm trying to look here, master plan intervention. Okay, so do we need to do anything to allow everybody so we can move on with the projects on the ball fields?
Well, that's in discussion. Those items that are in there that we talked about at the work session that are in the consent agenda is the 5-year educational capital funds plan. And then
Okay.
also moving forward with all the work that you all previously did to move ahead with the HVAC projects.
Okay, so we can approve this and move on.
If you approve the consent
Okay.
agenda, we will move forward with
All
those.
Let's vote, Jennifer.
Voting is open.
I just didn't want to get ahead.
All approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now to discussion.
Yes, sir. Your first item is the request for qualifications for a Realtor for the sale of Boone's Creek Middle property. We did receive a full proposal from only one firm. And quick summary of their plan, it's in BOE Connect, but you know, as far as cost, their proposal is a 6% fee for as they work to sell the property to help.
Who was that?
So let me make sure I get that correctly. TCI proposed. The TCI is the proposal we received.
Who is that?
Yeah, they're apparently, based on their proposal, a big group that's done development across the region, for property sale and promoting development. in their proposal. You can see what they've outlined as far as the marketing plan. And what they, in their review of the property and the worth and the plan they would have to market and sell the property, listed, you know, for approximately 1.5 million is what they have identified as the price to list it as.
Planner.
Well, just a few comments. TCI is a good company, don't get me wrong, but I think they are mostly exclusive rights. They don't share anything on MLS with other realtors and stuff like that. Is that the same case with this? That's the way I understood it, correct? So I don't understand why we can't get more than one person to, I mean, last time we were down to one person, and I get it, everything's going good right now for real estate, but I would just as soon put our own sign up and have them call the office. I mean, we're gonna have our attorney look, Scott Bennett, look at the sales contract if somebody has an offer. But that's just my opinion.
And did that still include a year term, a 1-year term, or was that listed in there?
Their term of their contract.
Right. Is it to be negotiated? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that can be negotiated,
Okay.
just the duration.
I
It's not sold.
kind of feel the same way that Chad does. Maybe we should print us out a sign and put it up, see what happens for a few months.
Would you have a point of direct contact on someone to call just beside central office to give the information, or?
I think Central
They have all
Office
the
would send them to Scott Bennett, couldn't we?
I mean, we can certainly discuss that with Mr. Bennett. You know, as far as my designee would be Dr. Adams. But we, you know, if we want to, because ultimately Mr. Bennett will review any contract and all of those details, so certainly that can be an option.
Is this something we have to decide tonight, or do we have, where we could defer it to workshop, maybe?
Certainly the board has that option.
Did we give a deadline on this?
On the board making a decision?
Yeah,
No, sir.
with
It was
this.
just a solicitation for, you know, qualifications for the board to consider, if what firm they may want to employ for the sale of the property.
I mean, what we're trying to do is market a piece of commercial property, and some of y'all understand that that's not the same thing as selling a single-family residence where you're driving by and you see the sign on the street and you say, hey, I want that house. I mean, in all likelihood, the people that are going to buy this property aren't even in this community, more than likely. So I think we're going to have somebody to market it and manage it for us. I get it about, going ahead and letting somebody in central office do it, but I kind of think it's not going to be the best use of time and effort.
I think that I guess from a professional standpoint, I think we're very capable of doing it, but at the same time, I agree that it's probably not anybody's here job, and it really probably isn't Scott Bennett's job other than to review the contract. I don't know. Okay.
For the second time, I'd just like to postpone this until
Workshop.
the workshop.
I like it. Good.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So, wait a minute.
I need to make that a motion.
We had a motion in a second, didn't we? No, we didn't. Okay.
I mean,
So
you
we
really
can
don't
just,
have to do anything.
Well, do
It's not like it just died and then you bring it back up.
it's dead. Let's move
Well, I
on.
mean, it'll be at the workshop, we can discuss it there.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, it's just no action. You haven't formally tabled the item, just no action.
Yeah. That's okay, isn't it?
Yes, sir. That's what the board chooses to do, yes, sir.
We ain't mad, we just wanna move on.
Hey, I didn't read it that way, and it's the board's prerogative, yes, sir. So the next item is this is specific to the conversations we've had around the high school athletic fields, the turf project. The motion, or the item, as could be considered in the form of a motion for your consideration, is consider approval to enter into an agreement with Baseline Sports Construction in Knoxville, Tennessee for the turnkey installation of Shaw Sports turf at Daniel Boone High School and David Clark High School per the Sourcewell cooperative purchasing contract. You see the number there, and funded through our educational capital funds, which we have worked through the process and have identified the funds and received approval from the county commission. Mr. Will Ferguson from Baseline is here. If there are any questions about what's included in the item and what's been shared with the board members, are the estimated cost of work, the scope of work and costs associated with that. And one thing I do know, what was asked is there's two costs. One is just doing the turf field and 6 feet beyond the end zones, and then from the discussion is to do the entire infield inside the curves of the track of both fields. There are some unique differences between, so in that work there is some difference in cost for the two sites.
I'll make a motion that we accept the baseline's bid to artificial turf the whole infield of the track on both schools, Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. Do I need to put a not to exceed $1.5 million? But I mean, we got a quote. That's a firm quote, correct?
Yes, I mean, the total amount with the full work, the scope of work did exceed the 1.5, but if the board sets that as a limit, then it would be our job to work with Baseline Construction to see what work can be done and come back to the board as far as what it's going to look like, you know, but and see what kind of cost savings we can to get the full scope of work close to that amount.
Okay.
I second.
What was that?
Second.
Is that a motion?
You,
I was waiting to see Ms. Finch.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
What was
Discussion.
not exceeding?
Not to exceed $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I talked to Mr. Boyd, but I was reading the thing about the rock and, you know, the rock hauling and stuff like that. It's $15,000 more to get Crockett, and he said they was. Can you come up and talk to us about what you're saying? It's going to cost more at Crockett.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm Will Ferguson with Baseline Sports Construction. The issue has to do with the proximity of the quarries. My initial estimates came from Vulcan. Vulcan's quarries are much further away, and subsequent to that, I've talked with USA Aggregates, and they have quarries that are closer. So presumably, we should be able to save some money there with just changing sources. And as it turns out, I think your term bid or your quantity bid with the county schools is with USA. So
That's it. Locust man.
Right. Now, there are two different types of stone that we're going to be using. We're using the 57 stone, which is a wash 3/4. It's not wash, but it's a 3/4. And we're using a number 8. Number 8s are going to come from a different location because they're not at that same quarry. So it's 50 cents more per ton to get them.
Now, how you getting across the track?
We have to build a bridge. So the bridge consists of, sounds a little more larger than it is. What it is we use a geotextile fabric, and then we use a plywood, and we put stone over the top of that. In the case of David Crockett, I think we're going to go across the track twice. The reason is that we've got to come in the entrance down that main driveway through the gate, or through the fence, past the field house, or past, I guess, concession stand. And cross the track there in order to get to the field initially for bringing materials in. Taking materials out, I think we're going to go out the back end to the practice field. And then, according to Mr. Patrick, there's another site nearby that we can take the spoils or the dump material. We got topsoil and clay that got to come out of it. So we got about, I think we're going to build 2 bridges because we don't want to drive down the track. That is go across it. Now, we're also a contractor for track surfaces. And so to the extent that there is damage, I think we can repair it. But we go out of our way to avoid that because it's.
So it's your responsibility as far if there's damage to the track, you will take care of it. That's not at our expense.
Now, here's the thing, the track's not the only issue that, which you need to be concerned, and this is where it gets a little dicey from a cost standpoint, is that whole drive, we got parking lot from the main highway all the way through the school, down the driveway, and to the track. I can protect the track, but I can't protect that whole
Driveway.
quarter-mile long driveway down through there. So there is the potential, because we're taking out something in excess of 300 truckloads of dirt out. We're bringing it back in somewhere in the range of 200 to 225 truckloads of stone. So there's some significant traffic coming and going. So I think it'd be instructive for you as a board to recognize that there may be some damage that occurs to that I don't have any other access.
I wonder, of course, Philip ain't here, but I sort of wonder if a body couldn't pull that fence loose back behind those gas tanks instead of going down that long, because 300 loads is going to tear that up.
Where are the gas tanks?
So like at Crockett,
It went out there in the
oh, okay, but you know what I'm talking about. So if you're sitting in the parking lot looking at the field,
Okay.
all that chain link fence right there, I wonder if it wouldn't be ahead just to have somebody pull that fence loose and just drive through there, in and out.
And that works fine as long as it's dry.
Yeah.
And we don't have any, if you have to build a road in, then you've got that much more stone, getting your road in and out. And I certainly don't mind doing that because that's probably a safer bet than going up and down the driveway, but you still got to get through the whole parking lot. Sometimes roadways, the driveways in are built to a heavier spec than the parking lot. So it may be better off staying on the roads than going through the parking lot. Taking the fence down and going through your yard is not a problem.
So would the road behind not be a little stronger because you can get all the way around?
And I think we're anticipating taking dirt
Taking it
materials
out.
out that way. And we could conceivably bring things in that way, then we don't have
Have to
one.
build a bridge.
One bridge. The upside of that too, and this is significant, that's something that you may want to consider, is that our hope, our expectation is to start around spring break so that we can get this done early and get it back to you as early as possible. In that case, then we're going to have students, traffic, so forth. So if we're going through that parking lot, now we've done lots of schools and we've managed this well. We've not run over any kids yet, so we're happy about that.
Well, I'd rather not have the trucks going between the annex and the building, just on that case.
You talking about what Annette's saying, going around back.
Going around
Right,
back.
but
yeah.
there's always a schedule that, they do that, and high school kids are pretty, you can tell them that's happening, and they can look, it's not like they're,
Logistically, we can work the logistics.
yes.
I
It's
guess-
not like they're little kids.
I guess
It's-
my thinking is even if we built a road in, if it costed $6,000-7,000 worth of shell, gravel, and stripping topsoil, if you tear that other road up, what's it gonna cost to fix that? I mean, I'm not saying that's on you, that's
No,
really
it's not.
ours.
Yeah,
But-
I don't think he's gonna tear up the road. As many buses and stuff's been drove around through there and on that parking lot. I wouldn't be afraid to say to bring him across the old bridge, the exit bridge, and right around and right along the side of the parking lot, and maybe even take that fence down, like you said, and go right down there to it. Or come on up there and go through the record gate. I mean,
300-400 truckloads of gravel is gonna be heavy.
well, that's 20 ton to the
A
load.
whole lot more.
Well, it's
than
just a
school
gamble. What you gonna gamble on? You just wanna gamble or not?
I just gamble it and send them on down the main parking lot.
Wonder what the weight limit is on the exit bridge, that lower bridge down there next to the creek.
It holds up buses and tractors and stuff. I mean, you're taking 20 ton across. So
Okay.
just bring them in the regular
Yeah.
main gate.
Let's just leave that in Jerry's corner, but I would like to see them stay off the asphalt, especially for the kids aspect of it, but let's just leave that an administrative deal with Jerry to handle that, but let's just go on with the 1.5 million, not to exceed 1.5, and move forward.
Well, okay.
Yes.
You know, and again, we work with Mr. Patrick, Mr. Ferguson, and the team at Baseline, and, you know, we definitely want any kind of disruption or even damage to be as, you know, minimal as possible. And if there are other options we explore and we see that it's cost effective to come in that back and with some cost, but it would be better, then I think, you know, certainly a direction we want to go. But
Well, and
overall,
if we run into a situation where we see damage occurring, then we can, stop it, back up and figure out how to correct it.
My only concern with 1.5, can we get it all done for 1.5?
All of it. Now, in the, I worked hard on this with the short time that I had a window to get information to you, and was trying to get the best numbers that I could. I even utilized everything that I could from a cost standpoint of saving taxes by allowing you to buy lots of material, which we've done before at other school systems, and it's worked really well. But based upon the numbers I've got, yeah, we're well over 1.6.
How much of that is your rock cost?
Well, we're right around, per school, right around 3,000, 3,200 tons, something like that. So that is, in the, let's pick around number $30 a ton, so you're probably at, 90,000, maybe 100,000.
Okay, I mean, you know that the county does own the rock quarry.
I don't.
At Locust now, so, and we actually use our highway department to do paving and put rock down, and it's one of those materials that we might buy, so I would encourage you, Mr. Boyd, to, reach out to the highway department and see if we could, generate a little bit of savings off the stone.
And so we've tried, from a tax savings standpoint, we're allowed to buy the turf, buy the stone, buy sand, rubber, pipe, and geotextile. So just about everything of any consequence. I've got a little bit of concrete, that's about all, that's about all the materials.
So are we still good, 1.5?
It don't sound like it.
Okay.
Can we
Can I
take,
amend that?
can we just take out the amount and let,
Well, we gotta set,
Well, we're looking at 807 for Boone and 822 at Crockett. And if we can work a deal out on the rock, then that would come off of this 1.629. I mean,
It'd get real close to 1.6. The quickest way to get the dollars down is to reduce the footprint, square footage. And so if you go to just the field, or a field plus a D zone at each school, I presume we want to do each school kind of the same. That's the quickest way to get it. If we, for example, at Daniel Boone, the high jump at Daniel Boone takes up the lion's share of that D zone, and so it's actually harder to work around the high jump in order to put synthetic turf around it than it is to just leave the grass where it is. Now, your staff there is eager not to have to cut grass and maintain it.
I mean, the whole reason why we want to go with turf, in my opinion, is so it doesn't matter about the traffic, foot traffic. And it's maintenance, and it's going to be open, so.
And this D zone, keep in mind, the D zone area is much less traffic, much less use.
Can we just restate the motion?
So if you take one D zone out, I mean, you can get our dollars down.
So if we restate the motion at 1.65, if we can get it down,
just as a point of order, I think, you had a second on the motion.
Yeah.
When we went to discussion, you either have to withdraw your motion.
Let me rescind that restate that motion to 1.65.
We still gotta get another second.
I'll take that back too.
Okay.
Well, I
You
will-
second the new motion?
Second.
Okay.
I
Yes,
would
sir.
like for him to work with Jerry and Johnny on the rock deal.
They can
We
work
can-
on all that.
On that, I want that,
But-
because there's no difference coming from Locust Mountain
Either
to
way.
Boone to Crockett. They ain't but 3 miles
You're
difference.
right,
So,
and I understand that now. We've just had a relationship with Vulcan
I
that
know.
we've used for years,
Yeah.
and it didn't occur to me until I got pricing back from them that it was not, they didn't have a quarry nearby.
Now, we do realize any savings we generate, correct, under that 1.65 million, anything that's saved comes off, correct?
it comes off of whatever, the way I figured it, if it's at 1.629 or whatever the full figure is for them two, should be what we've got it set at.
It's, right now, based on proposal, if you add both of the sites together, it's $1,629,603.
All right, that's what it needs to be.
Yeah, one other issue that I'd like your help with, and maybe somebody has some knowledge about it. The drainage at Daniel Boone is at issue a little bit. David Crockett's got 3 catch basins that we can find. And best we can tell at Daniel Boone, there are no catch basins on the football field, between the track and football field. So I was out there with Mr. Patrick and Logan and Danny Good and whoever, I forget who else was, maybe football coach. So where does water go? What happens when it rains out here? I said, well, it stands over here a little while and then it goes away. I said, okay, but that's not, I need something.
You got to go somewhere with it.
Exactly. And I need something in which to put it. So typically, infield on football field's got 8 catch basins, one at the top of the turn, on either side and down the middle. So I tie into those catch basins and then literally cover them up, because the field, once we're completed, is one big drainage system. So the water that comes off the track goes in the field, everything that lands on the field goes right through the system and into the stone, into the French drains, and into the catch basin. Now, the question then becomes, what do I do with that water and how do I get it off the field? Now, maybe in the course of excavating, we find catch basins. They could be covered up, they could be abandoned, I don't know, but we can't find any outlets either. Any idea?
No.
And it's got to drain somewhere, and the field, you can't send it on another neighbor.
Somebody else.
You can't send it on nobody else.
How big are the catch basins? How large do they need to be? Just like a,
Oh, I just need to be able to get an 8-inch perforated pipe in it, so 2 feet is, at 2 by 2 by 2 is fine.
What he's trying to say is that's gonna cost more money.
I know.
We can work with Mr. Patrick and maintenance and.
I think we need to leave it at 1.65 so we can, they
If we
can
have a
go.
trouble, we got a little bit of buffer.
Well, my thought, and I'll just tell you, my thought is to bore under the track, set a catch basin in the track, but your point is, you've got a church right next door, or a public park, I think, I'm not sure what that, the sort of buffer, but then there's a church, I don't think you wanna kick it down on the church, you probably have
there's green space between the field and the highway there, that might work for that.
and that would work. The issue is we've got to get water from the far end of the field, because you can't go uphill toward the school, you can't go toward baseball, so we've got to go from that end all the way to the other end. And even at a 0.5% slope, you're talking about 400 feet, you're talking 500 feet of run at 0.5% slope. 1% is 5 feet, 0.5% is 2.5 feet. So all of a sudden, a 2-foot catch basin becomes a 4.5-foot catch basin. You see where?
What about going with a larger pipe?
The larger pipe doesn't really help it, it makes it that much deeper. The smaller pipe is adequate, but keeps
But
it higher.
it'd carry more, the larger pipe would carry more water out.
Yeah, it's not the speed, it's really slow, because the water goes through the system and goes out slow, which is nice. Everybody likes slow moving water. So it's not the size of the pipe, it's the slope on the pipe. Now, I can make it flat, in which case it'll stay in the catch basins and gradually find its way out as it fills up, which may be what we have to do to get it to the far end. Because then we can kick it out into the swale or the green space between the field and the highway.
That would hurt the life of that though, wouldn't it? The turf?
Water goes straight through the system.
You just have to be careful where you take it out over there, unless they're cross country, of course. Yeah.
Well, we would, typically you put riprap or something at the foot of it so that you have a drain tile coming out and it's controlled right there. But my biggest reservation, or biggest issue is getting a catch basin and something that we can take the water to and then get it through or under the track. But I don't think we're gonna cut the track. We can help.
All right, we good?
Yeah.
All right. So,
1.65.
6.5.
Enter in agreement, baseline, according to this co-op agreement, at 1.65.
All right. Let's vote, Jennifer. Mr. Will, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And anybody want to see the turf?
Oh, you bring something?
Yeah.
Hey.
Voting's open.
Boy, I'd like to have that in
While
my
was
yard.
Mike was here.
I'm not in favor of turf. I'm a grass man myself, but I knew I was gonna get outvoted on this deal, so
I'll save you some of that grass.
Hey,
I believe you chew on that.
I'm a farmer,
The
so
same one that's,
I like
sealed.
grass.
pretty cool.
We did not, we did
That is neat.
volunteer in Cherokee
Okay.
and Knox County.
Keith, you might want to play some farm with that.
Cal Caney.
And just keep in mind too, you know, there's sand and fill in that turf that causes it to stand up. So, you know, it's not flat like that when it's installed.
How often do you have to to refresh that?
We'll have to keep it groomed, so we'll have a process, and it's part of the purchase, something to keep it groomed and
So let's say 10, 12 years down the road, we hope, we gotta replace this, just the turf, be significantly cheaper, I would hope.
It is, it's not as dramatic as you would think because you've got to demo the existing turf. So you've got 5 pounds per square foot at 100,000 pounds, it's 500,000 pounds of something you got to get rid of, rubber, sand. Then you got the turf to deal with. Then you got to refresh the stone and then put new turf in. And so we're thinking it's in the 60-70% of the base cost to go back 10, 12 years. So this brings up a good point, and one of the things that I would think as a board that you want to know about is the ongoing maintenance of these fields. The industry or the warranty on the field is an 8-year warranty. The industry standard is 10 years. We'd like to see if we can get 12 years out of it. So that's a 20% gain in effect upon your investment. And so what we set up with Knox County is we do a 3, 6, and 9 years. Every 3 years, we come in and do a maintenance that includes decompaction, it includes cleaning, adding rubber as necessary, checking the infield depth, doing what's called a GMAX test, which is an objective test of the force reduction. Because one of the advantages to this field is that you can actually measure and say, well, when that helmet hits that field, here's how much force is received and not given back, and so we can gauge that. So it's the only really objective way of saying that the field's worn out, because if you go ahead and look at a field, it's hard for me to tell, much less anybody else is looking at it and saying, well, I don't like the way it looks, but does it still work? Is it still functional as a field? Is it still safe, as safe as a football field can be? And so every 3 years we recommend this maintenance with the idea of getting it to 12 years. So just something for you to consider. I'll let Mr. Boyd decide if he wants to promote that.
What is that purchase of that? What does it cost for you all to come in there every 3 years to?
It's $16,000
Per field.
Per field, on a 3-year basis. So it's, if you break it up over 3 years, it's 5,000 plus.
And you don't think you can get more than 12 years out of it?
The reason we don't is that the only thing that really wears this out, because you can literally utilize it for middle school and high school and lacrosse and soccer and whatever you want to put out there on it, as much as you want during that period of time. But what happens is it breaks down into ultraviolet. So ultraviolet light essentially just wears this out over time. And consequently, with we've seen fields go longer, maybe 14 to 15, but by that time, you're sweeping it up, you know, it's really deteriorating. So it's not really so much a matter of maintenance. Maintenance is important, and it's gonna look better and play better if we maintain it well. I'm gonna give you a gift, but there's a groomer as a part of this for each school. That's a drag behind, kind of like you drag the infield on baseball. But it's got brushes on it, and ideas to keep the turf up and keep the infield located correctly. And so you'll have that to maintain, and then if you were to want to do this without, you can do it. There are other people that maintain fields too, and so you can have them come in and decompact, do the GMAX test. The nice thing about that is every 3 years, you've got an objective evaluation that says, yes, this field meets the criteria, or it overperforms from a criteria standpoint, and so it meets the ASTM standard. You'll have a report that tells you, here's what the measurements are, here's the depth of the infill, and so forth.
What all does your warranty cover?
The warranty is from the manufacturer, so it covers if something happens to the backing, or the material starts to fall apart, or it comes out prematurely, any of those types of things. I warranty the installation, so your coaches and your athletic directors will have my cell number, and what they do is they say, hey, and this is likely to happen, by the way. The hash marks, the numbers, the letters, the logos, any of that stuff are inlaid. The long playing lines are sewn in at the plant. Everything else has to be inlaid because that's the location on the field. And all of those things are cut and glued in place. So there's always a potential for failure there, or a sewn, and the long seams are sewn. So there's always potential for something coming to unravel. And so what you do is pick up the phone and call me, and I come up and fix it. We're just in Knoxville, so we just come up here. We do this all the time, and that is the best way to keep it in playing condition, and that's the easiest way to maintain it.
We certainly want, be educated on how to care for these fields, and, the annual cost of that preventative maintenance should be included in our annual maintenance budget, as we certainly, like other buildings and facilities, we want to make sure we have a good schedule and follow that to extend the life as far as possible.
Other than that, there's very little to do maintaining it. You need to blow the leaves off, pick up anything that's out there. The groomer will pick up most things, but if there's rock or even bubble gum, stuff like that, during that maintenance, we have a magnet that goes over it that picks up the metal, because you'll get cleats off the track athletes, you'll get hairpins, you'll get rings. I found a stud earring the other day. Diamonds, I guess may not. But
You're not wearing it.
But you can find all kind of stuff out there.
So when they go in there and take the grass off, how far down do they go? I mean, how far down do they take it down, and then how deep is the stone going back, and then the stone, this goes on top of the stone, right?
Correct.
Then you got the filler or whatever you go inside this with.
Correct. So we presume that topsoil is 6 to 8 inches. So we're definitely taking all topsoil off. So we got to get down to clay, because we're building back up on clay. We put a geotextile fabric over clay to avoid
Over the rock.
The rock.
I mean, underneath the rock.
To keep it from going through the clay. So, but our elevations are important, because right now, for example, at David Crockett, you're about anywhere from 2.5 to 3 feet higher in the center of the field than the elevation of the track, depending on which side of the track. The track is not consistent in elevation all the way around. It's close, but it's not quite consistent enough. So the center of the field is going to come down to the place where we get 0.5%. We want to be somewhere between 0.5%, 0.75% slope across the field. So the way it is now, you've got 2 feet of slope. We want to be in the range of 8 inches, something like that. Maybe.
What about yonder?
Long way, it's going to be level.
Level.
So goalpost to goalpost, at the center of the field, you get the same elevation, and then as we drop to the side, and what happens is, because the track is at different elevations, I'm exaggerating, but there's 3, 4, or 5 inches of elevation difference, and we're going to taper out. We're going to hold that elevation to the end of the football field, or almost to the end of the extent of the soccer field. And then we're going to match to the elevation of the track, because even in the straightaways, the track's not the same elevation down through there. So as we're tying in over here, we're going to be 1 inch or 2 lower than we are over here, which is 3 inches higher than over.
Is it the same way at Daniel Boone, or is Daniel Boone level on the track?
I don't know, I'm not as specific about Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone's elevations are less, so we have less dirt to take out. And I spent all my time worrying about drainage over there, so I didn't get elevations on that. But we're going back, I think tomorrow to get elevations. Yes, and then we come back up, we've got 5 inches of stone, and this turf is 2 inches, and then that attaches to a curve that goes around the perimeter of the field. There's a nailer board attached to that, and that's how we terminate the turf at the nailer board, so it nails right to the edge of the track. And the curve is flush with the track, the slope into the field, so water that sheds on the track sheds across the curve and into the field, and it's, like I say, one big drainage system. Soon I can find a catch basin.
Sure.
Good.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
And if you did notice, they did, our board did vote yes to approve us moving forward, so we'll be looking forward to working with you.
Good. Appreciate your trust in us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm excited.
We can tell.
Thank you. That was it as far as the next item is for the board is, you know, the resolution that you have been shared, it's been shared with you for your consideration.
I want to thank you for bringing that forward for us to look at.
Yes.
Resolution. And I'd move that we adopt that and send that to our local political parties who will be making the call, as I understand it, on whether we have a primary partisan or nonpartisan election.
Yeah, I think the goal of the school board is to be
Second.
bipartisan, you know, and work together instead of fighting over whether you're a
Exactly.
Democrat or Republican. I don't care, as long as we're doing right for the kids, so glad you're doing that.
Well, it was, Mr. Hammond brought it forward for the board awareness and consideration.
We'd intended to send it to the state legislature, but of course they voted
Before.
Well, I'm going to withdraw my motion and let you make it. You brought it.
No, I don't care about that. I wish we, you know, it was a rushed week for Nashville.
Don't think it would have mattered.
No.
They don't need to be politics in the school.
Mr. Chair, you want to, you feel that it needs to be read aloud, so for public record and also everyone to hear?
Good, please. Be glad to. Ready? Whereas Washington County Board of Education is charged with governing the school district so that all students receive the best educational opportunities in order to graduate prepared to enter a post-secondary institution or the workforce. Whereas school board elections are currently nonpartisan, meaning that a school board candidate does not designate his or her affiliation when running for election. Whereas nonpartisan school board elections allow candidates to focus their undivided attention and interest on education and represent the needs and aspirations of their communities. Whereas nonpartisan school board elections ensure that electorate has the ability to focus on the candidate's qualifications and devotion to the education. Whereas local boards of education make decisions as whole and need unity among its members when making decisions that affect students, the district, and the community. And whereas allowing school board elections to become partisan has the potential to create division among the board and shift the focus away from the needs of the students. Now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Education urges the General Assembly to oppose any legislation that would allow school board elections to be partisan.
In my 11 years on the board, the focus from each and every board member has been on the children. It's never been on political parties. And I would hate to see that change.
Thank you, Dave.
Have they voted?
No. Let's vote.
Thank you.
Matter?
I don't know that you've signed it in red. We'll ask Ms. Moore. You're the chair, you can do it, what you need to do.
I'm sorry, mine red.
Go ahead and finish.
You want my red pen?
No, I'd rather not.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. As that's being passed around and signed, if you, to move to the next item, there's a series of policies for your consideration. As we discussed in the work session, the committees that you annually approve, changing your policy on standing committees that you may instead of required. As you see the need, you can implement those. So there's policies in there about with that change, that language. There's also associated with several board policies that required budget committee, policy committee, long range planning committee, and other committees, special projects to be removed from policy. And then separate from all of those policies around committees, there's also, as you see, a policy updating 6.200 on attendance. So if you want to take each one separately, or if you want to,
Can you make a motion and just take all of the committees?
if that's what your motion is, and you choose to do so, of course.
Since we didn't handle that at our workshop.
Make a motion, we take off 1.404, 1.45, 1.46, and 1.47, and delete those
I second.
policies in board.
Okay, discussion? Vote? Thank you, Jen. Mr. Flynn?
Then would it be appropriate to pass 1.49 and 6.200 on second and final, those two?
You got a second?
Second.
Okay, so we can discuss now.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the attendance, there was at one point a time frame for makeup work. It was like you had 4 days for every day missed, so that you had a time frame of which the student had to make up the work. So if you missed 4 days in a row, the teacher could not have you turn in all your work the next day, and the student had a time frame on which they had to return the work to. Is that something that should go back in there, or is that something that you feel like is school-based?
I think, well, maybe not so much school-based. I think, we need it to be consistent across the district. I don't know that it needs to be policy. It can be administrative procedure.
Okay, well, like I said, it was in policy at one time.
Right.
But, and that really needs to be known.
It would be in our student, that would be,
That would
if
be
it was
great.
administrative procedure based on policy, it would be in our annual handbooks that we develop and
Will
make sure
you
they're published.
check and make sure that it's in there, since it's not in our policy any longer?
I'm sure Dr. Myers has noted that.
Thank you.
I can tell she was back there all over.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now will we vote?
Good for me.
All agree.
Next on the list is WCEA representative.
She's been patiently waiting in the bathroom.
Probably thinking about all them retirees left.
Thank
A few more years, Danielle.
I do have a few more, you're exactly right. I had one former teacher in that bunch at
Miss
Boone
Carson?
High School, Mr. Maines.
Oh.
I love Mr. Maines, he's excellent. But, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Most of you know I'm Danielle Mitchell, and I'm one of the officers for the Washington County Education Association. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for your diligence and your time away from work as you went out into buildings and probably still have some buildings to visit in Washington County and visit classrooms. Thank you for the work that you do there. Thank you for the time that you take and for your interest in what's going on in our classrooms. I would like to encourage you though, if you would please, follow up with those teachers. A kind word, an email would be an excellent thing for them to hear from the people that are governing our school system. It's always, a kind word always goes a long way. So I appreciate your time there, and I ask that you would do that for those ladies and gentlemen who've opened up their classrooms and had you in to visit with their students. The other thing that I wanted to talk with you about this evening for the teachers and students of Washington County is I'm sure you're all well aware, as Mr. Hammond was talking about, that the Nashville's moving quite fast these days, and we've had some special sessions, and I know that one of the things on the consideration for the legislative agenda in this upcoming year is a revamp or at least a thorough study and look at the BEP formula. And so the basic education plan and formula is how the state sends funding dollars to our school systems. And I'm sure that most of you know historically the state of Tennessee has fallen in the bottom section of the nation for per pupil expenditures. So I am all for whatever we can do to better fund public education and the students' learning. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things while I had a second. Historically, the state has not fully funded the BEP formula that is in place. So the funding formula, that's hard to say, the funding formula that is in place currently typically is not funded over around 60 to 65%. So the state historically has not met its commitment to the formula that's in place. And therefore, there are improvements needed in that funding area. I know the words have been mentioned, or the idea has been mentioned about student-centered funding. And I'm all about student, and any teacher, any public school teacher would be all about student-centered learning and student-centered funding. And so looking at that, anything that in that formula that would help with raising the per pupil expenditure to the national average or closer to the national average would be welcomed. I know that our governor and our commissioner of education have been seeking feedback from community members and educators and school board members like yourself about your thoughts and ideas for improvements to the basic education plan, or the BEP formula. They started about mid-October, and there was about 90 days worth of feedback, or 90 days they're going to take to get feedback, and they're planning town halls and that kind of thing. I was super encouraged. I know they did a town hall meeting or a meeting about that down in Greene County. I caught a snippet of that and saw one of our fine Washington County administrators there advocating for improvements in the BEP. So that was a wonderful thing to see. So I encourage you all. I know there's a form online. I have a link to it. I filled it out. That said, please contact me to talk to me about improvements in the BEP formula. So if you're interested in that link, I would be more than happy to forward it to you and let you fill out that form and be on the lookout for the town halls. Unfortunately, I must have missed the information about that and missed the town hall in Greene County or in Greenville, but I hate that I missed it. But just a couple other things. I know that student-centered funding is an excellent and appealing sounding idea. Centering money on students' needs is always the best priority. But I must say I'm a little bit wary that sometimes in our state legislature, when we talk about per pupil expenditures, we want to open the door for money to leave public education in the form of school choice or other terms that might be used there. And while I do have friends and family who choose to educate their children outside of public school, and I would love to say that the money should follow the student, and in my heart, I think there are some things there that make that sound really appealing. On the other side of that, we don't fund public school well now. So let's fund public school well now. Let's make sure that the money that we're putting in there serves the public good. There are lots of things that our tax dollars go for that serve the public good. I may not drive on every road in every state-funded highway, but my tax dollars go to help that. I don't currently have a child in public school, but I'm happy to say my tax dollars are going to go there to support it. There are things that we do for the public good, and funding public schools well is one of the things that we can do not only now, but to preserve the public good in the future. Do we want more school counselors? Absolutely. Do we want smaller class sizes? 100%. Do we want to make sure that our students' needs are met socially, emotionally, and academically? 100%. So anything that we can do to improve the BE formula in that way and get that money into public schools, I wholeheartedly advocate. And I hope that you will reach out and connect with your local legislators and say, we want money for public schools in a way that will reach the students first and help the teachers in their classrooms. I appreciate your time this evening. Like I said, if you want that link, you know how to find me. I'm on the Washington County email list, and I'll forward that link to you. I hope you all have a great evening. If you have any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm hoping that we will address that at our PSBA convention in a couple of weeks. I'm hoping that's going to be the main focus.
The main concern that I see is I love that we want to increase that formula, but I hope that doesn't come with the caveat that some of it can be pulled away for this or that.
Well, you know, and I've been, had the opportunity to serve on one of the subcommittees, the rural and small district subcommittees that's going to be happening in this discussion, and certainly I know that my voice will certainly reflect what you've shared.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
That question did come up last night in the Greenville Town Hall. And I thought Commissioner Swin really did do a good job of answering it. And what my takeaway was this isn't about money leaving public schools. This is how we better fund public schools.
It should be a good job, Major.
I sat down with Brenda Alexander, so she's willing to sit down with anybody and talk about it.
Let's invite her.
Let's talk COVID. Can we?
Yes. Well, you know, and that's just wanted to make sure, I asked Chairman Day to bring this up. You know, there was a bill passed in special legislative session that restricted the authority of school boards and other entities in requiring masks. You know, the bill was focused on the concern about a requirement that could occur on vaccines for students, employees, and then outside of public education, other industries across the state of Tennessee. So the bill focused on that and limiting that authority of a municipality, a county government, an elected board to make those mask mandates. Once the governor signs that bill, becomes law. That has not occurred yet, but as soon as it does, assuming it will become law. And the restrictions are, they're still in cases of very extreme numbers in a community where mask mandates can be required, but it's a very high threshold. So I say all that to say we will have to transition from what we currently do when the governor signs the bill, and all school systems are facing that when that happens. Just wanted the board to be aware as soon as that happens, our current policy of requiring masks indoors in our schools would be in conflict with that law, especially based on our numbers.
So it would just go away, mask mandate?
We would. So I mean, what I asked is formally, basically contingent upon the signing of the bill by the governor when the law does become, when it does become law based on the governor's signature. We just asked for go, while we're here, a motion that if that does happen, then we, you know, we get in, we become compliant with the law, of course, and we move forward. Yes, sir.
Is there anything in our policy, board, administrative or otherwise, that would preclude a child, if their parents so chose, to wear a mask in a classroom?
We certainly want to continue to give people that option if that's what they choose to do. The law is focusing on the requirement in schools and other areas.
Well, before COVID ever hit, if you had 15 kids in your classroom and they were all masked up, I didn't know if that would be a problem.
Certainly, we want an environment where if the parents choose to let their child wear a mask, we want them to do that. And then employees as well. The law doesn't just address mask requirements for students. It's employees as well. So, if an employee wants to wear a mask, of course. I think for the time being, especially in the younger grades, as I enter schools and go into classrooms, I will continue to wear a mask, but, that's a choice I'll make. And then over a period of time when I feel like maybe, watching our numbers, it gets to a point, then I'll get back to normal, so to speak. But I want everyone, when that happens, or if and when it happens, that they still have the option, of course, of wearing masks.
So this will also change our quarantine policy too.
Well, that's the thing, and then certainly, Ms. Wagner is here. She's had to manage a lot of phone calls and explanations. Our current policy is following the CDC and the Tennessee Department of Health's protocols, but that's assuming that we continue to contact trace. It seems in a community where it's not a requirement, whether it's in the school system or across the county, I don't think the health department's going to continue those procedures, and neither will we. So included in with the governor's signature and moving away from, the ability to have that requirement, would also, we would no longer contact trace. Now, if someone has symptoms, we would treat it, and Ms. Wagner, please jump in, we would treat it like we have in the past with other illnesses like the flu. I mean, if someone comes to school with symptoms, it's just, based on the nurse's expertise and knowledge, I mean, they would address it, and if they have symptoms, then they would be sent home. Am I correct, Ms. Wagner?
Yes, it'd be done just as it was pre-COVID, nursing assessment, and then use their judgment after that. With, if there was a positive case, then we would still isolate them for 10 days. However, the change states that at any time during their isolation period, if they have a negative COVID test, whether it be an antigen or a PCR, they can return at any time within that 10-day period, as long as they have a negative test.
So we'll be shifting. It's we want to do everything we can to continue to keep our learning environments as safe as possible. But, just with the within the guidelines that we will be working with you.
When is the governor thinking of signing? What is the?
I do not have, I have not received any direct information on that. I've been trying to keep my eye open as far as the informal. I would expect it to be a public event, just because of all the other, not just that one bill. There were several things that were done in the legislative session.
Mr. Flannery's got some.
I'd like to make a motion that we, as soon as it's signed by the governor, that we give the power to Mr. Boyd to make any and all changes that he needs to our COVID policies for him to be able to act on that without board approval. We'll make it go tonight.
Mr. Buchanan seconds that. Anything else?
I'd like for him to send an email or a text or what to the board to let us know that he's doing it.
Yes, sir.
Before it ever hits the public.
I definitely, in those kinds of, I would want in the communication timeline, I'd want to inform the board first, inform our leadership team, including principals, and then inform our staff, and then inform the public.
Thank you. I'm excited to get to the post-COVID.
Let's vote.
Tobin.
Do we have any dates or anything we need to go over tonight?
It's on the
Yes, we
calendar.
can.
I forget I have to say yes twice.
There you go, Jennifer.
There it is.
There you go.
I'll approve.
Jennifer?
I plan, is everybody gonna be at the groundbreaking on Tuesday?
That's the plan.
I plan to have your, travel checks, and I'll have you a detailed itinerary, and when you're checking in and what you're attending. I plan to give that to you Tuesday.
Thank you. Keith, you have something?
Well, I know we're gonna go down, most of us is on Thursday, but I'd like maybe the board get together and go out to eat or something, if we could, so.
Make a motion that we approve that on Keith's dime.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if we can get something put together.
I'll vote for that.
All right.
I'll get a pound of bologna and loaf of bread. We'll all sit down there.
Let me rescind that, too.
All right, meeting
Oh, you're
adjourned.
going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Mr. Bob. You did a good job. Thank you for being here.
How many of you are going to that thing on Thursday?